You know, I always try to be a good person, to be positive and all that other happy crap, but lately, there's some things that are just really ruining it for me. Like what, you ask? Diets. I mean, come on. I need food. My neighbor Steve, dude, do you really have to mow all the damn time? Give it a rest, bro. TV show cliffhangers. Get to it already, WandaVision. What about Booger McFarlane calling an NFL game? That rumble in your stomach followed by the sudden urge to clinch just after I get out of the shower. But I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try to really get through it. I'm going to fight the urge. And in this episode, we're going to talk about a few players that I hate, that I really don't love here in 2021. But wait a second. Is that a mo? Steve, you mother... What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there today. And do you hear that? No lawnmower, right? Steve's not going to be mowing here anytime soon. Problem solved, which is good because we got some fantasy football to talk about here today. And we're going to be talking about some players that I just don't love here in 2021, but it's early. It's way too early, right? It's February. A lot of things can change here over the coming months that could really make the outlook of these players look a little bit different. But as of right now, I got a few guys that we're going to be talking about today that I just don't love here in 2021. If you can do us a favor before I get into this list of players, hit the like button. It's the offseason. Views are down. Likes would probably help us a little bit here on YouTube to try to draw some more eyes in so we can get a few more viewers here in the offseason. But we greatly appreciate that, but we're not going to waste any more time. Here's a few guys that I just don't love here early in 2021. So let's go ahead and kick it off with the running back position. We're going to save quarterback for the end because that one's going to be a little bit tricky. So we're going to start right here at the running back position. This may not be a surprise to a lot of people who follow offseason moves. It's going to be Chris Carson. I guess you can say of the Seattle Seahawks, he's a free agent, so that's definitely something we need to pay attention to. And one of the reasons why I really don't love him here in 2021. Now, a lot of people heard Pete Carroll come out after the 2020 season and say, hey, we need to run the ball more and more effectively. Now, we immediately got excited because we all assumed that, hey, Carson has those incriminating photos of Pete Carroll somewhere, right? It's what's given him all these opportunities over the years. But now it's going to look like Seattle's not going to bring back Chris Carson and could move on from him. He's the best running back they've had over the last 3 seasons. He had over 1,300 total yards in 2018 and 2019. However, injuries held him to only 12 games in 2020, and now the injuries are starting to rack up on a yearly basis. But really, the main reason, it has to be Rashad Penny, right? Don't forget the name Rashad Penny in Seattle. Now, he's been dealing with injuries, but for the first time in a long time, he should be fully healthy, good to go. And now they compare him with last year's rookie DJ Dallas and have a super solid backfield in Seattle. Do they even need Chris Carson? But we all know how this could go down, right? It happens every single offseason in the NFL. An offseason signing happens, hype goes through the roof because there's not a lot of NFL news at that time, and the next thing you know, ADPs shoot through the ceiling and get way too high. So it's really going to be a waiting game for the most part for Chris Carson. Now, if he does, for whatever reason, re-sign with Seattle, to me, that shows commitment by the organization, and we can go ahead and draft him once again as a running back 2 in fantasy football. If he doesn't go back to Seattle, there are very few teams out there that I would really like to see him go to where I would still be interested from a fantasy football perspective. One of them being in the same division he's played in his entire career. What about the San Francisco 49ers? Tevin Coleman, Jerick McKinnon, they're both free agents. Both Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert struggle with injuries, and they're in the final year of their contracts also. It is a super creative offense in San Francisco. That offense that has made Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert a thing in the first place. Be honest with yourselves. A lot of you had no idea who those guys even were until they entered this type of offense run by Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. If you give somebody like Chris Carson that kind of opportunity, yes, the ADP should rise, and I would be happy to pay for it on draft day. However, more times than not, running backs get signed in free agency to a situation that's going to take them multiple years, or at least, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 weeks to really learn that system, to be put in a position to get enough volume to be somebody that you can draft early. It's all about situation. Everybody has a price. You just don't want to overpay for it. And right now, it's super early, but I don't love Chris Carson here early in 2021. Which will now lead us into wide receivers, and this one may be a surprise, but it really shouldn't be, right? It's going to be Michael Thomas of the New Orleans Saints, and I think a lot of people feel this way right now about Michael Thomas. Sure, 2020 was a down year, right? It was hampered by injuries, but that's really not the only reason for me putting Michael Thomas in this show. It's really a mixture of things that are going forward. Like the retirement of Drew Brees. I mean, that's a big one, right? And yeah, sure, it's not for sure yet. Looks like he probably will be, but we really don't know here. We'll pay attention over the coming months. But a loss of Drew Brees, even though he doesn't have much of a rotator cuff left, is going to limit the potential upside of a Michael Thomas because we're going to base it off what we saw him do 2 years ago. We may not see that anymore out of Michael Thomas in New Orleans. Doesn't mean he's going to be a horrible wide receiver. We just can't pay in 2021 for production that happened in 2019. It makes no sense. What about off-field drama? I mean, this is starting to become more and more of an issue as of late, right? We probably hear more about Michael Thomas and his off-field issues than we hear about him on the field, and that's a problem. Plus, the offense, it's not solely reliant on Michael Thomas and force-feeding him targets on a weekly basis. You got Jared Cook, Emmanuel Sanders, both of them with 1 year left on their contract, plus Alvin Kamara is going to eat up touches in this offense on a weekly basis. And you can kind of see that at times, even throughout 2020, when Michael Thomas was on the field, right? He had 55 targets this season, but 0 touchdowns, yet the Saints still went 12-4, and Thomas played in 7 games. But who's going to be under center in 2021? Is it Taysom Hill? Is it Jameis Winston? Well, as of right now, it kind of has to be Taysom Hill, right? With the potential Brees retirement coming, and Jameis Winston technically being a free agent. I mean, as of right now, it looks like it could be Taysom Hill's team, and we know kind of what that offense will look like. We saw a good, sample of it in 2020. Now, Sean Payton has already come out and says that he does want Jameis Winston back. But does he want him back to be the number 1 quarterback? Does it even matter? More times than not, we're going to see Taysom Hill involved in this offense. We saw him involved in the offense with a Hall of Fame quarterback, Drew Brees. If you really don't think he'll be involved with Jameis Winston as a quarterback, you're sorely mistaken. This could be a two-headed quarterback situation in New Orleans for the foreseeable future. Now, I'm not saying that Michael Thomas sucks. Obviously. And if you go out there and you start to look at ADP, you can see his ADP is a lot lower than it has been in years past, which is great. However, there's still too many variables in play, and there's a lot of great options at the wide receiver position. Look at some of the great young talent out there. DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson. I mean, all those guys are going to have similar ADP to Michael Thomas, and honestly, I'd rather take a gamble with one of those young guys over Michael Thomas. I'm just not loving him here early on in 2021. Which will now lead us into the tight end position, the football kind, of course, and another year is here, and it's just another year that I really don't like Evan Engram. Now, the other day I did a video talking about why I like TJ Hawkinson, and a lot of that had to do with the potential volume that he could see in his offense. He's going to be one of the main targets in Detroit. Well, Evan Engram gets that volume, right? He saw 109 targets in 2020. That's 4th most among all tight ends in football, yet he finished tight end 16 overall in fantasy football. Why? Why does he see that volume, but he just can't convert it into points? Well, there's really 2 reasons that led to that tight end 16 finish. Number 1 is drops. The dude has a serious issue catching the football at times. He had 10 drops, 2nd most amongst all tight ends in the NFL. Secondly, what about quality of targets, right? Just because a receiver or a tight end is credited with a target doesn't mean that it was a catchable target. Right now, he's not being thrown to by Aaron Rodgers out here. He's got Daniel Jones for the most part, and the target quality has lacked, to say the least, here over the past couple seasons. Now, he hasn't finished higher than tight end 12 over the past 3 years. Every single year there's hype, and every single year there's disappointment with Evan Engram. The guy is super talented. He's super athletic, but I'm going to leave this headache to somebody else. Not loving Evan Engram at the tight end position once again here this year. Which leaves us now only the quarterback position, right? And I said I saved this one for last because it was going to be a little bit different, right? And the reason for that, honestly, there's not a lot of quarterbacks that I just don't like right now. For me, the biggest thing to focus on is the round 5 cutoff. Every single year, people want to reach for quarterbacks and draft them in the first 4 rounds of fantasy football. Ask the Lamar Jackson owners how that turned out for them just last year. There's always talent late. This year, Josh Allen was one of those guys, right? Finishes one of the best quarterbacks in football, yet he was drafted after Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. There's always somebody in that round 5 to 8 to 9 range that is going to finish in the top 5 to 8 quarterbacks. It happens religiously almost every single year, and you have to think that it happens once again. But look at some of the names that are before, maybe even I'll put Jared Goff as the cutoff. And I could put Jared Goff on here as somebody I really don't love, but a lot of you guys already know that. And plus, he's ranked 21st overall in the consensus, so a lot of people don't love him. But Mahomes, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Ryan Tannehill, Tom Brady, Joe Burrow. I like all these guys depending on their price on draft day. Heck, Matthew Stafford, you already know I like him. Kirk Cousins, I think, is somebody who's super underrated. Jalen Hurts, he's climbing up the rankings. There's a ton of great quarterback options here once again. Sure, there's guys that we really don't like that much, but where they're currently going to be going in drafts, they're not bad values, right? Because everybody has a price. I've already mentioned it in this video. It just depends what that price is. There's a lot of great quarterbacks. So the only thing I can really say here, as of right now, given all the current situations, I'm not taking anybody before round 5. If you're in the first 4 rounds of my fantasy football draft and you're a quarterback, you're not going to make it on my roster. There's just too many other options, and I would rather focus on the skill positions of running back, wide receiver, and tight end before I worry about a quarterback in the first 4 rounds. But like I said in the intro, don't get too caught up with things here early in the offseason, right? A lot of things can happen over the coming months with free agency, the NFL drafts, players, getting cut. A lot of things can change, a lot of moving parts in the NFL offseason. Kind of need to see where the chips fall to make any determining factors on these players. But here early, these are the guys that I'm not too pumped on in 2021. But I want to know, what do you think? Who are a few players out there that you're just not going to gamble on whatsoever in 2021 fantasy football? Is there a name that you just can't stand? Is there somebody who burned you last year that you're not willing to take that risk again? Do you just have personal vendettas against somebody? Leave them down below in the comment section. It's always interesting to see who else out there that you guys really want nothing to do with in fantasy football. So leave those players down below in the comment section. Should be fun to interact with you guys back and forth on those names. But like I said also in the intro, do us a favor. Hit the like button. Consider subscribing. If you're not, why are you not? There's all things fantasy football. Plus, we got some big things coming here in the coming weeks. Do you like college football? If you do, you may want to stick around because we got some big news coming about college football. Stay tuned. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your weekend, a great upcoming week, and we'll talk to you later.